All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Sean here with Blue Ridge Silverhound. I hope each and every single one of you are enjoying the hobby. You're having fun. You're having a great week, most of all. Um, well, pretty interesting. Due to popular demand, there's been more talk, more buzz around paper money collecting, more specifically, fancy serial numbers. In this particular episode, we are going to take a look at about the last 24 hours of market activity. The market is incredibly busy. There's a lot of activity, a lot of active bits going on right there. But most importantly, in this video, because the buzz in the community seems to be that, um, a note has to have a value of X, 50, 75, $100 for them to be a worthwhile collectible. But the problem is with the values of the notes that people think are more worthwhile to A, sell, B, buy. The problem with that is it shuts out a lot of the more kind of like lower end collectors that really just want to enjoy the hobby for what it is, and that is low budget, getting into the hobby, at least getting a foot in the door. Because if you're trying something out, do you want to pour all your money, heart, and soul into it at first glance? No, not necessarily. So, what I did in this video was highlight a few of those kind of like right on the fence, kind of fringe type of fancy serial numbers that myself probably would not never collect or buy. But you guys need to know that there is a secondary market value. And then as we get to them, I want to take some time to focus in on whether or not it's even worth it to sell those type of notes if you're only selling them for $5 or $10. But at the end of the day, you collect what you love. You collect to adhere to a specific budget you could only afford. But there are people in the community that firmly believe that because a fringy kind of like on the bubble type of fancy serial number, if it sells for 5, 10, $15, it's a general ripoff, and that is simply not the case. Because at that low budget, you're collecting something that you love, and you're not spending a whole lot of money. Plus, there are the community of folks out there that do angel number collecting. They're very much into that. There are people that collect, specific type of numbers that are more meaningful to them. Okay, you can't dismiss those type of crowds. So there's a wide gamut, ladies and gentlemen, of different crowds that buy the notes for various reasons, and we cannot dismiss those types of people either. So for there to say that there is only one linear market and we're sticking to it is pretty much short-sighted, and they probably don't know what the hell they're talking about. But getting back to what we have here, we have about 20 notes that we're going to highlight. I did pick and choose them, for kind of the effect that we're trying to go for. There are a wide range of notes that have generally no value. Okay, I'm not gonna bullshit you on that. There's going to be a lot of notes, a lot of different what we at first glance see as, that's kind of a neat serial number pattern. It's probably worth something. It might be worth more to you than it is the rest of the community because it doesn't adhere to maybe a specific fancy serial number kind of guideline, whatever that might be. There are certain top tier, top shelf fancy serial numbers that have more skin in the game for the hobby than things like trinary and 4-digit repeaters and things like that. Things where the notes, particularly where there's a greater chance of finding those. I mean, there are people out there, ladies and gentlemen, that have hundreds, if not thousands, of trinary notes, like in a box somewhere. And they're the type of people that they have them in a box, but they'll tell you these are worthless. Yet they went through the trouble of keeping them in a box, thousands of dollars. It just really doesn't make any sense. So you gotta make sure that you put your heart into what you believe in. Okay, it may not necessarily be me but the hobby that you choose to be in, because it is a hobby. We're not going to lose our cool or get into a screaming debate or matchup over a hobby. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look and see what we have here today. Starting out with a pretty neat serial number. What I like most, and this is going to be a general practice that I think a lot of you should adhere to, is to type in the actual serial number sans the prefix and suffix letters, just the serial number right into the title, and that's going to give you a whole lot of effect. All right. So in this particular case, this is a radar. It's a 3-digit. So we're working with zeros, threes, and fives. Some people also call these trinaries, although this is kind of like a plus size kind of trinary because it is also a radar. It's a combo fancy. This particular one right here sold for $27.88. As we go on through the video, please do keep in mind the bidding activity. Either they're going to be bid up to a certain degree for the value of the note that a community adheres to, or it's going to be a buy it now hit. Someone wants the note and they don't want to go through the rigmarole of having to be a part of a bidding kind of like scenario. They can just go ahead and buy it now, pay, check out, pay their shipping, and then they'll get the note in a few days. So this one, quite a bit of activity. It is a very attractive looking note. Again, you guys know my aversion to setting up photos correctly. In the eBay editing tool, you could rotate these so that way they're more horizontally oriented for the listings. At the end of the day, this is not a deal breaker for me if I'm out looking for this note, because the serial number is neat. I'll just buy it. I think it's more of an aesthetics thing. I'm working more off of the left side of my brain and all that stuff. But I'm more kind of like probably the minority than everybody else. The next one that we have here, actually, it looks like a jumbled mess. But when you kind of like read in between the lines, you're going to see that this one is a birthday note. This is kind of like what we call the Western orientation of how, I guess, dates are written out. Okay, so we start out with the month, the day, and then the year. So it's two digits for the month, 2 digits for the day, 4 digits for the year, customarily. If you were writing out forms and things like that, that's how you would do it. So we have October 7th, 2019. This could signify a birth date or some other, type of thing. It is a note, and various types, if they're oriented like this, generally we've seen them sell anywhere from about $25 to $50. I know it's kind of a wide range here, but when we look at things like this, these have a very narrow market, but there's going to be specific people that are looking for maybe that particular type of serial number, and then they will pay all the money in the world for it. Now, you don't want to go too overly expensive here. If all the previous notes have been selling for that $25 to $50 range, you probably want to be in there. All right. So your question to me is going to be, well, you have this kind of top tier $50 level. What kind of makes up that $50 level? And it's going to be kind of, and it's a no-brainer. If you have a note, for example, if it's Christmas, it reads out 12/25 and then a specific year, the desirability of birthday notes also coincides with holidays as well. So if there was a significant event, as far as a holiday, then that's where people would pay a little bit more to own those notes. It kind of makes sense, but it does happen, and I see it quite a bit because I do monitor the market and how fluid it is at any given time. The next one that we have here, kind of interesting. It doesn't even qualify for a trinary, which is very interesting. This particular note sold for $13.59 with 8 bids. I'm like throwing up 4, so it's 4 and 4, 8 right there. But what we have here is actually 4 pairs. So you have double 8s, double 9s, double 4s, double 5s. Okay, and again, the neat thing about this hobby is that you could insert yourself into a budget. Okay, there is And for the people that seem to think that there's a wrong way to collect these, I'm going to tell you right now, there's no wrong way to collect it if budget is going to be the ultimate barrier that keeps you from owning a note. It's things like these that have, I think, plenty of room to grow, but please do understand at this given time, for this particular serial number, it is on the lower end of the totem pole. And then, it would be a matter of Sean, Blue Ridge, would you buy a note like this? And the answer is probably no. Okay. And the big reason why, okay, is that I have kind of a certain taste in the hobby. There are certain coins I look for. There's a certain budget, a minimum budget that I feel comfortable buying into because I want to have investable high dollar things in my portfolio. So when that time comes and I'm ready to sell, the higher value stuff is going to be much easier to move. All right. Taking nothing away from the low budget folks because I used to be that and I was that for the better part of 2 decades. My tastes have changed. I do not buy these, even if my motivation is to flip and resell. But I wanted to let you guys know that there is a market for these because there's a vast majority of people that have a much lower budget. And we also have to keep in mind that those folks are buyers too. That's the big reason why the companies like Walmart and, like AMPM, they exist is because they offer a lower value product, compared to anybody else. All right. And then that's why they're so popular. So we can't dismiss those folks. And then plus, in addition, times are a little bit more tough. You hear it all over the news, inflation's dropping, but it doesn't really feel like that. I'm still going to the store and paying $5 for a loaf of bread, or I'm going to the gas station and my gas is still $5 a gallon. So, budget and how much something is plays very much into people's daily lifestyle. If it's too expensive, they're just not going to collect into it. And the whole thing about numismatics is that it's a great hobby with multiple entry points. And there are just some people that just don't understand that premise. The next one that we have here, again, another kind of low budget type of note. It is a trinary, but I think, again, if you read between the lines here, and then you can see it right in the description, the seller does a really good job at that, is that you have a note with 6 5s, okay, which is in a pretty nice amount of one singular number. Now, granted, that last 5 isn't grouped together with the other 5s, so that does play a role in the actual valuation of the notes. So this one right here, if I didn't add the shipping, which by the way is $2, they did charge $2 for shipping. If we went and peeled the layers of this banana, we would see that the note sold for $6.49 with 4 bids. Again, there were a few people that were genuinely interested in owning this note from a budget perspective. So because of that, there is marketability for things like this. Now, the real question for those of you that are selling on eBay and you're selling these things, is it worthwhile to sell things like this? Well, for new sellers and probably intermediate sellers, anyone with feedback under 1,000, I'm like, hell yeah, it's worth it. Okay, and the big reason why is you sell these and you send them off, in a plain white envelope, and at the end of the day, you end up profiting $3 to $4 on this particular note. Guess what? That's $3-4 that you add into that profit bucket. It all adds up, and it's going to be an easy, positive feedback score to your rating. It's things like this that heighten that feedback score, which allows you to have lower rates. Okay, the percentage in which they charge you to sell items on the platform becomes less. All right, then they put you higher up on the algorithms. Advertising's better for you. So there's a lot of benefits here of selling the lower value notes. Again, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Where it's a budget play, people have every right to buy things that are $5 to $10. All right, and it's not a scam. Okay, it's not a ripoff. It's not any of that. It's just people truly, genuinely have a budget, and when they see notes like this that look pretty neat, okay, they will assemble a collection like this, and then they'll play the game because they feel right about it. All right. So the next one that we have here is another trinary. Okay, again, we have six sixes in the serial number, and then we have that pesky 0 and 3. Again, a note that me personally, I wouldn't go out of my way to buy because it's just not my thing. But again, we're looking at another note by the same seller as the previous that ended up selling for $7.99. And keep in mind, they do charge $2 separately for shipping. So, it's another kind of like $5 profit here if you had to kind of work the numbers from a net profit standpoint. Doesn't seem like a whole lot. It may seem like a waste of time, but again, you're killing two birds with one stone. You're getting a happy customer that is on a budget, and you're also kind of enhancing your brand on eBay. All right, so again, it's not wrong to buy this or sell it. It's just this is one part of a large whole of a budget criteria for a lot of people that otherwise don't have thousands of dollars to invest in this. Pretty neat one here on a $20 bill. Again, I always heed caution on the larger denomination notes. You make less profit. That shrinkage is a real thing, ladies and gentlemen. And we're not just talking about diving in 50-degree water, but we have a 3-digit serial number. They call this a low serial number fancy. And generally, anything with 5 leading zeros and a 3-digit number is considered low in my book. 4-digit is kind of like, again, you're kind of straddling the fence of a market acceptable kind of piece and one that is just, it's neat and it's purely a budget play at that point. The note itself is pretty well circulated. All right, so again, no smoke and mirrors here with this one. You're just gonna get what you have here. But the kind of like my aversion to collecting things of a high denomination is that if I only own it for $32 and I really need the money, I will go and spend that as a $20 bill. All right, and then not worry or go through the trouble of selling it on eBay because I need the money then and there. That's kind of like the opposite of what we're trying to achieve here by collecting into affordability, is that when you buy a high denomination note, it could come back to bite you if you're not careful. So please do keep that in mind with notes like this. We don't talk about them that much. Silver certificate. We have a binary serial number including 4s and 7s. Just an overall neat, pleasant look to the note. It's actually in really nice shape. The seller says uncirculated, and I believe him. I don't see any folds or any soiling to speak of. The note sold for $26, ladies and gentlemen, 12 bits. Binaries, like repeaters and things like that, radars, are on the low end of the spectrum for the fancy serial number type. So there are certainly not notes that you're going to get rich off of. Okay, that those are few and far between, and even if you can find one you can get rich off of, it's going to end up being about $1,000+ I've seen them go as high as 10,000, depending on what you have. So obviously, it's a great supplemental type of income opportunity. You just have to recognize what's out there, what the market is realistically. This is one of the big sellers on eBay for fancy serial numbers. Ronald sold this really attractive looking binary 2s and 5s on this dollar bill for $39.88. Of course, you see 14 bids. That's real activity, real people bidding up these items. And Ronald just really does this thing. He knows the type of fancy serial number notes that are very marketable in today's numismatics, and he's going for it. So he focuses in on the notes that people want the most and are willing to pay more money for. Have I seen him sell some of the lower kind of tier notes that are under $10? Sure. I see him sell a lot of notes under $10. Again, his philosophy is I appease and cater to the wide audience, and all those little wins and victories go really great together with the bigger victories, and that goes into one pot. So Ronald has kind of like the best philosophy when he goes to sell these notes, and bravo, another nice solid win there. Ronald, another great one here, although at first glance doesn't look like anything. So let's go ahead and dissect this one. He titled it Bookends Repeater. Okay, and it's kind of, they call these hybrids. So you have 7-3. Okay, and it's bookended on both ends of the serial number, and then straddled right in the middle. You have 2020, like perfect vision. So it's not a repeater per se, like a 4-digit repeater, because when you read it, it's not. But it's got kind of like this combo thing happening. And because of how forward and honest he is with this, ended up selling it for $55.55 with 8 total bids. And I'm telling you guys, this guy has 25,000 positive or overall feedback to fall back on. So he could sell things like this. And again, the hybrids, sometimes it can be a tough sell, but when they're as clean and presentable as this, then you would have no problem, making some pretty good income selling that one there. This one right here is another note in what I consider to be another hybrid. This one was actually scooped up for $12.99. Buy it now, free shipping. So the seller is going to have to take a piece of that sale price and use it for like a plain white envelope, which is generally about $1.15. So it's not a whole lot. It's got eBay's tracking number. It's not a tracking number that's usable by USPS, but eBay has that tracking number on there. So this one is, again, another hybrid. You got a repeater with 0.4, and then you have a solid 8s to round things out. What I like most about hybrids is that they are an affordable way to get into fancies without breaking the bank. You look at this, and it could be a great conversation piece, to someone. I know I appreciate notes like this. I've actually sold a few. I sold a hybrid ladder solid on a $2 bill probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I wish I wouldn't have, because it's a really neat note. But, hybrids are, yet again, another way that you could, on the cheap, get into the hobby. The next one that we have here is actually a really sweet binary that's sold for $59.99, which features 1s and 5s, and everything's grouped together. And it's like the perfect scenario, the perfect storm of a note that would sell for more than what the general market normally is for binaries. So again, another great looking serial number here. The note's in great shape. It looks almost new, but I can tell it's got one faint little centerfold on there. We also have this one here too. This is our next birthday note. Okay, again, oriented correctly. This individual had theirs in regular auction for $16. I guess probably not 100% sure where to kind of position the sale price of this one here at $16. It could have sold for $24.99. I'm just saying. But it reads out February 12, 1988, and that's really cool. That is, again, the Western orientation of how dates are written out in our neck of the woods, and that's how it's the most recognizable. There are more buyers of these type of notes in the Western world than there is anywhere else. So that's kind of like the big selling point there. We have another trinary. This one very intriguing. It's sold for $19.99 with a single loan bid. Okay, nothing wrong there. $3.96 for shipping. This one is a 1 and a 3, and then 6 in a row 5s right down the middle. Great looking note. Again, this probably is more of a low budget type of fare. And if you did come across one, I would say that it's going to be a pretty relatively easy sell. There are some notes that you're going to be sitting on, especially if you're doing the whole buy it now bit. But if you do your research and you know how much these things sell for, then you could go out and you could position a certain dollar value that you're willing to accept on the low end, run it as a regular auction, and just let someone put in a bid. All right, and that's going to be something like this. Next one that we have here actually is a trio of $2 Fed Reserve notes, all bearing trinary serial numbers. Each one a little bit different. They're all from the same block, so the GA block. 3s, 7s, and 8s, all in one. Sold for a nice little pretty package of $12.99. They did charge for shipping separately at $3.99. Again, you know, it's a low end sale. Sometimes grouping them together, especially it's more effective this way because they're all part of the same block. $12.99. Someone scooped it up in a buy it now scenario. All right, so another decent sale there. Another neat one here as well. Another trinary, folks. We've been doing a lot of trinaries in this video. I wanted to kind of represent the community at large that are looking for trinary notes and just kind of, you know, exploring the range in which these sell at. Pretty big sale at $119.99, but we could see why. It reads out like 70 million in one, right? It's got all those zeros in the middle. Again, it's got all the eye appeal, the glitz and glamour of, you know, say any other high end fancy serial number. You know, and they do call these millions, but I like to see a zero at the end as opposed to that one. But it really did not matter because someone did pay over $100 for this note. We also have this one here. This is again kind of like the budget buster, fancy 4-digit low serial number. You know, again, I'm not a particular fan of this type. Again, nothing that I would cross the street to buy from anyone at all because it just doesn't fit the need of my collection. But when you look at this one, the note's, you know, pretty well worn and tattered. It's pretty rough. $12.50, 3 bids. 3 bids. It was bid up, folks. You know, no scam here. $4.36 on the shipping. And yeah, another solid sale right there. And then we're coming up to the last few here. We have another binary. This time's actually they put binary in the description, but more appropriately, it's a trinary because it's got a 0, 5 2s, and a couple of 9s. Okay, so we gotta make sure we're using the right terminology here when we're selling these, you know, because it says binary. This pretty much, you know, I'm not saying that this is generally the case, but it gives the buyer an out in the event that they wanted to return this for any reason. So please do use the correct terminology. Again, I'm not a fan of trinaries. You know, there's more trinaries out there than anything else. And they're low value. You know, it's going to be the type of thing that if you're on a budget and you want to collect because they're neat and all that, then trinaries are your thing. $20, $19.99 here on this one. Note's in decent shape. It's got some paper crisp to it from what I could see. Overall, pretty nice sale. Just a really whacked out awesome note. Binary, you can even say it's low digit. 7 of a kind zeros. It's got that 2 in the middle. This one just screams sexy all the way on this $1 bill. And it's not even that great a condition either. $178.05 with 48 bids. When we go to look at this thing, you'll see that it has been around the block a few times. Okay, which proves one thing, that sometimes condition doesn't necessarily matter when it comes to the collectability of some of these notes. All right, and the last few items here, you know, they were buy now best offers. I can't pull up the information on these, but our first one here is again another birthday note, actually from a few months ago, that reads January 23, 2024. I could see where this one was purchased because maybe they have, you know, a new addition to the family, a new baby boy or girl or something like that, or it could be another date that, you know, has more significance to them. But again, you know, probably sold in that $25 to $30 range. They were asking $35 for it. And the final note for today, check this thing out. Man, what a monster. And I'm kind of feeling that maybe the price is a little bit too low on it. Again, I can't find the information on how much this one sold for, but it does have condition issues. So I'm like, I'm kind of torn, you know, as far as, okay, what the market is for something like this versus, you know, did condition play a huge role in the value? So it's looks to be a 2013 $1 bill. Binary, that's obvious, but most importantly, it's a super radar. That's where you have 6 of the same number in a row in the middle, and then 2 bookends that are the same numbers, which is this to a T. But you also see that the note has a lot of stains on it. All right, which again, it's the eye appealing thing. It's things like that that could, that could kind of negate some of the overall value of a note that, generally this is $100 bill plus, if it didn't have the stains. But in this particular case, they did do a buy it now best offer option, and they accepted however much they accepted for the thing, and ended up with the sale nonetheless. Well, there you go. There's kind of a brief glance at today's market for fancy serial numbers. Again, I appreciate you guys that are a fan of this particular segment. There's a lot to talk about in the hobby. Again, this is 24 hours of activity. I could do another one of these the same time tomorrow, and I guarantee you there's going to be as many notes as what we talked about today. Again, the market's very active. There's a very wide spectrum of different tiers and budgets. So, we can't certainly forget that the people that only have maybe 20, 25, 30 bucks to allocate to the hobby every month, they'll look at things that look neat, that are affordable, and that they could own in quantity, right? Like they would rather spend $5 a piece on 6 notes that might be kind of like trinaries or whatever, but they're going to have ownership of something neat in the hobby, and that's all what it is. Another thing, someone had brought up, why don't I spend more time talking about notes and things like that are damaged, that they claim to be a certain error but really isn't? Why don't I do more things like that? Well, I could, but here's the thing: when we do those type of videos, and when you guys watch those type of videos, kind of the ultimate feeling you get is more enrage and less optimism. Okay, now I'm not telling everybody that you go out, you buy bank straps, at your local institution, and then that you're going to guarantee to find things. Sometimes it'll take hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars to achieve some pretty nice goals and finding some of these notes that we looked at today. But I wanted to let you guys know that there is more to be said about the market as it sits, rather than focusing in on more of, what people are trying to sell as an error or a fancy, and it's really not the case. You could go either way, but I think more of the optimism scale is where it's at, as long as you're able to correctly attribute and to correctly explain your way through each and every single note. But I think some people kind of forget that that is another option rather than talking about the negative all the time. Okay, that's not how I flow. I want you guys to know that there is a market. It might take you 1 month, 2 months, 6 months to sell a certain thing, because as I continue to talk about fancy serial numbers and its respective market, there's going to be more people that are going to be doing this. All right. So when that's the case, there's going to be more collectibles hitting the marketplace on eBay and various other websites, on social media. And, there's just going to be more out there. And when there's more out there, you're going to have an idea of spending X amount of dollars. Now, instead of 1 or 2 people that you trust, you might have 24 people that you'll want to buy from. And, that's kind of where we're at. So, cater to everyone across the board, and you're going to be one of those trusted sellers for a long time. And just, be 100%, true and honest to the people about what you're selling, and you're going to be in good shape. So, that is a great piece of advice that if I had to give anybody, and there's loads of it in this video, I became more explainy in this video for certain reasons. Because again, there's a lot of more hyped up demand for fancy serial numbers, because the more we talk about it, the more that we're getting it out in scale to people that otherwise have never even considered collecting these before. So that's going to go ahead and do it for this one. I'm your host, Sean, with Blue Ridge Silverhound. I want to thank each and every single one of you for tuning in today to explore the market at a glance of the last 24 hours. So you guys keep collecting, you keep on hunting, and then you do your thing. All right, as will I. So I'll see you guys later. Have a good one, and I'll see you on the next coin and or currency video. So long.